Welcome to the lesson on ratio and proportions. You'll want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil to jot some notes down, and you'll want to pause these first 5 slides to get those notes. So this is slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, and slide 5. Okay, now that we have those notes, what we'll want to look at is how to calculate a ratio. Realizing that a ratio is a comparison of two or more things, what we're looking at here is the ratio that expresses the slope of line L. Well, we remember that slope is rise over run, and that's the ratio that we're actually looking at. We're comparing the rise to the run. So using our formula for slope, rise over run, which is also y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, I'm going to calculate slope, and that'll be my ratio. Remember, when calculating slope, you have to pick a coordinate to start with, and all you have to remember is it doesn't matter which one you start with, but once you pick it, you got to stick with it. So for example, if I decide to start with b, I'm going to start with the y value at b. Then when I do my x values in the denominator, I've got to start with b again. So that's what I'll do. So I'm going to set this up using the y value in b, negative 2, minus the y value in a, 3, over the x value in b, positive 2, minus the x value in a, negative 1. A little simplification gives me a ratio of negative 5 to 3, or negative 5/3. Now, as I said, ratios can be a comparison of two or more numbers. In this case, what I'm looking at are the sides of what appears to be a rectangle. And so there are 4 sides to compare here, so the ratio is 3 to 7 to 3 to 7. And we can see how we can use that where we have multiple numbers in a ratio to help us find missing sides and missing angles. So here's an example where I want to find the missing sides of a triangle. So what I have is a ratio for the sides of 4 to 7 to 5. And I know that the perimeter is 96. Now, let's think about this for just a minute. 4 to 7 to 5, those can't be the lengths of the sides, because 4 plus 7 plus 5 is 16. 16 is obviously not 96. So there's some factor going on here with these numbers. Well, there's a real simple way to solve. If you think of these numbers in your ratio 4, 7, and 5 as coefficients of x, then what you can do is create an equation real simply. You know that in perimeter you would add the 3 sides of the triangle to get the perimeter. So I want to replace 4, 7, and 5 with 4x, 7x, and 5x. And I'm going to add those 3 together and set them equal to the perimeter, 96 centimeters. So 4x plus 7x plus 5x equals 96. We already said those numbers add up to 16, so that's 16x equals 96. And dividing by 16 gets us x equals 6. Here we wanted to know the length of the shortest side. The shortest side obviously is associated with the 4 or 4x. So 4 times our 6 is 24 centimeters. You can use the same method to find the other 2 sides. The second side there, the longest side, the 7, would be 7x. So I'd replace the x with 6. It'd be 7 times 6, or 42 centimeters. And then the third side, the 5, would be the 5x. Replace the x with 6, and 5 times 6 is 30 centimeters. So our 3 sides would be 24 centimeters, 42 centimeters, and 30 centimeters. Let's do the same thing with angles. Now we remember in a triangle that the 3 angles have to add up to 180 degrees. Here we have a ratio of 1 to 6 to 13. Again, those are going to be the coefficients for x, and those 3 angles have to add up to the 180 degrees. So we're going to replace 1, 6, and 13 with 1x, 6x, and 13x. We're going to add those up to equal 180. Now, just for a little clarification, the first thing I'm going to state is that x plus y plus z equals 180, and those are the 3 angles. I'm replacing each of those with one of those values, one of the x values that I have. So x will be my 1x, y will be my 6x, and z will be my 13x. The only reason for doing that is when I go back to find the measure of each angle, I had an idea of what I'm actually having to plug back into. So here I have the replacement, x plus 6x plus 13x equals 180. Adding those values together gives me 20x equals 180. and dividing by 20 gives me that x is 9. Now I already know that 1x is 9, so that takes care of the x part of this. But remember we replaced y with 6x. So doing that reminds me, okay, it's not just that each angle is 9 degrees, but that I need to plug in the 9 here for x and have 6 times 9, or 54 degrees for my actual angle. So the second angle there is 54 degrees. The third angle is z, which we replaced with 13x. When I plug the 9 in, I multiply it times 13, and I get that z is 117 degrees. So that my three angles are 9 degrees, 54 degrees, and 117 degrees. Now what I want to do is use my cross product property to solve a proportion that's set up. Proportion is just a comparison of two ratios, and they have to be equivalent. So whatever x is, it has to make 7 over that value equal to 56 over 72. That has to be a true statement. So using my cross product property, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the 7 times the 72 on a diagonal, just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set that equal to the 56 times the x on that diagonal. So I'm going to do a cross here of my multiplication, diagonal multiplication. Doing that is going to give me 7 times 72 equals 56 times x, what we did in the cross multiplication there. And that gives me 504 equals 56x. I would then divide by 56 and find that x is 9. It's a fairly straightforward calculation. So let's do another one just like it. So in this case, I'm going to take the d equals 2. I'm going to multiply, or I'm sorry, it said d equals 2. I meant to say d times 2 on this diagonal. D times 2 equals the 6 times 3 going on the other diagonal. Now we'll remove those so that we can see these values, but again, remember that we're multiplying on a diagonal. So d times 2 is going to equal 3 times 6, or 2d equals 18. Dividing by 2 gives me that d is 9. Alright, let's make it just slightly more complicated. So here I have a z minus 4 over 5 equals 20 over z minus 4. Now it works exactly the same way. So I'm going to do my multiplication here diagonally. Z minus 4 times z minus 4. And I'm going to set that equal to 20 times 5, going diagonally the other way. No problem there. The 20 times 5 is 100. The z minus 4 times z minus 4 actually ends up being z minus 4 quantity squared, and simplifying the 5 times 20 gives me the 100. Now, you may be thinking here, okay, I've got to do z minus 4 times z minus 4 and FOIL that out. And that would be fine, but that's going to make this problem a lot more complicated than it needs to be. There's a much easier way. Remember that when you solve for a variable, what we do are the order of operations in reverse. So however you learned it, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS, or some other version. You just need to remember that when you're solving for a variable, you do that backwards. So the first thing you're looking for is addition and subtraction. And then you're looking for multiplication and division. And then exponents. And last but not least, parentheses. So as I look at the left side of this equation, outside of parentheses, because they've got to do parentheses last, there is no addition or subtraction. There is no multiplication or division. There is, however, an exponent, and I need to take care of it first. So I want to get rid of that power of 2. In order to do that, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So when I take the square root of both sides, you have to remember that when you take the square root of a number and you're solving for a variable, you get two numbers as your answer. So the square root of 100 is not just 10, but it's positive 10 and negative 10. I get plus or minus 10. And taking the square root of the square on the left side just cancels those out. So I have z minus 4 equals plus or minus 10. Now, that means I have two equations to solve for. I have z minus 4 equals positive 10, and I have z minus 4 equals negative 10. I got to solve for both of those. In both cases, I'm adding 4 to both sides, leaving me with z equals 14 and z equals negative 6 as the two solutions to this equation. Let's do one more just like that, just for an extra bit of practice. Once again, I'm going to multiply diagonally x plus 3 times x plus 3. over, or is equal to, the 9 times 4. Okay, got a little long with the line there, but that's all right. Remove that, and let's take a look at how that turns out in the equation. So we have x plus 3 quantity squared equals 4 times 9, or 36. Same idea. I want to do this in reverse. There's no addition or subtraction or multiplication and division on the left side outside of parentheses. I understand there is inside, but not outside. And then I'm going to remove that power of 2s by taking the square root. Well, the square root of 36, again, giving two answers, is plus or minus 6. So now I have x plus 3, no more power, equals plus or minus 6. So I'm going to set up two equations. X plus 3 equals positive 6, and x plus 3 equals negative 6. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides of that equation, and that is going to give me my two final answers, 3, negative 9. Okay, now, just for a little bit of fun, this is going to be, and I can't speak for Miss Grothouse, but I'm sure she would probably join me on this, but for Mr. Hudson's class at least, what I'm going to be looking for is, this is an extra credit assignment. So you've watched the video, you get the chance to earn a little bit of extra credit by working this assignment out and turning it in to me at the beginning of class tomorrow. Here's the catch. You can't tell your buddies about it that didn't watch the video, because I'm going to take the count from the number of hits on this video and the number of hits on the channel that have increased to make sure that I get the right number of turned in assignments. So if we have more than the number of hits on those two, then I'm not going to give any extra credit for this. So don't tell your buddies about it that didn't watch the video. This is your way of getting a little extra credit for, one, doing what you were supposed to, watching the video, two, taking the time to learn the material. So thanks for watching the video. Have a great day.